The Man Who Lived in an Airport. The Strange Odyssey of Mehran Karimi Nasseri. The bustling corridors of Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris are a place of constant movement. Planes land, passengers rush, suitcases roll. Yet, amid this ceaseless flow, there was once a man who did not move, at least not beyond the confines of Terminal 1. For 18 long years, Mehran Karimi Nasseri, who preferred to be called Sir Alfred, was neither arriving nor departing. He was simply there, stranded in a bureaucratic no-man's land, trapped in a limbo so absurd it would have made Kafka proud. A man without a country. Mehran's story began long before he set foot in the airport that would become his unlikely home. Born in 1945 in Iran, he claimed to have been expelled from his homeland for protesting against the Shah. Seeking asylum in Europe, he was eventually granted refugee status by Belgium in 1981. However, he made a fateful decision: to travel to the UK, where he believed his true destiny lay. But somewhere along the way, his refugee documents were lost. Whether stolen, misplaced, or seized in a cruel twist of fate, the absence of those crucial papers turned Mehran into a legal ghost. When he landed in Charles de Gaulle in 1988, British immigration authorities denied him entry. Sent back to France, he found himself trapped in a paradox, unable to enter France legally, but also unable to be deported, as he had no country to return to. And so, his life in Terminal 1 began. The Bureaucratic Nightmare. At first, authorities tried to resolve his case. French police attempted to expel him, but where could they send a man with no documents? The Belgian government refused to issue new refugee papers, insisting that he had to present himself in person to claim them. An impossible demand, since he could not legally leave the airport. The British Home Office rejected his request for asylum. Every legal avenue led to a dead end. Lawyers, diplomats, and human rights activists became entangled in his case. At one point, Belgium did offer him papers, but only if he agreed to live in Belgium under supervision. By then, however, Mehran had developed a peculiar attachment to his strange life in the terminal. He refused, insisting he was British and deserved UK citizenship. The legal maze spiraled endlessly. Forms were filled, appeals were made, but the result was always the same. Mehran remained in Terminal 1, an unwilling resident of the airport's artificial world. Life in the terminal. Over time, Mehran became a fixture of the airport. He set up his own space near a row of plastic chairs. His luggage became his furniture, his home. His daily routine was dictated by the rhythms of the terminal, shop employees beginning their shifts, flight announcements echoing over the intercom, the changing faces of travelers who came and went while he remained. Passengers and airport staff came to know him. Some pitied him, others admired his stoicism. Journalists began to write about the strange man who lived in Charles de Gaulle, and soon he became a global curiosity. He read newspapers, he kept a diary, he wrote letters, always signing them Sir Alfred, a name he had seemingly adopted for himself. His days blurred into weeks, his weeks into years. Financially, he survived on donations from airport workers, passengers, and well-wishers who sympathized with his plight. Some employees discreetly provided him with food from airport restaurants, while others offered small amounts of money. Occasionally, journalists and filmmakers who took an interest in his story provided financial support. DreamWorks, inspired by his case, reportedly paid him for the rights to his story, leading to the creation of the film The Terminal, starring Tom Hanks. Despite these occasional windfalls, his lifestyle remained modest, constrained by the reality of his existence in a transit hub. As years passed, he seemed to lose touch with the idea of leaving. The airport had become more than a refuge. It was his identity. He had created a world within those walls, adapting to the sterile, fluorescent-lit environment in a way that few could understand. He crafted a meticulous routine, waking at dawn, washing in the airport restrooms, and spending his days reading and writing. A red bench became his designated space, a territory marked by familiarity rather than ownership. His health declined gradually. Years of living on processed airport food and breathing recirculated air took their toll. The stress of his predicament aged him prematurely, though he remained mentally sharp, always ready to discuss philosophy, politics, or his rightful claim to a British passport. The kindness of strangers sustained him, but loneliness was his constant companion. As the world modernized around him, Mehran remained stuck in time. A strange ending. In 1999, after more than a decade of legal wrangling, France finally allowed Mehran to stay in the country, but he did not immediately leave the terminal. By then, he had grown so accustomed to life in the airport that he no longer felt the urge to leave. The idea of living outside its confines terrified him. He had spent so long in exile from normal society that reintegration seemed almost impossible. Eventually, in 2006, he was hospitalized for an illness, bringing an end to his 18-year stay in Terminal 1. After his recovery, he lived in a Paris shelter, fading from the public eye. Though he was no longer confined by bureaucracy, he had lost his sense of purpose. Without the terminal, he was adrift in a world he barely recognized. Then, in a bizarre twist of fate, he returned to Charles de Gaulle Airport in 2022. Reports suggest that after years of struggling to adapt to life outside the terminal, he sought solace in the only place he had ever truly called home. It was there, in Terminal 2F, that he passed away on November 12, 2022. His cause of death was believed to be natural, attributed to years of hardship and deteriorating health. He was found near his old resting place, as if he had instinctively returned to the only constant in his life. A modern myth. Mehran Karimi. Nasri's story is more than just a tale of bureaucratic absurdity. It is a reflection on identity, exile, and the strange places where fate can strand us. Was he a tragic victim of an unforgiving system? A man who clung too tightly to an impossible dream? Or simply a soul caught in a liminal space between past and future, belonging nowhere and everywhere at once? His life raises questions about the nature of home. Is it a place, a legal status, or simply a feeling of belonging? For Mehran, home became an airport terminal, an impersonal space that paradoxically offered him stability. His story inspired films, books, and debates, but at its core, it remains a deeply human tale of resilience and loss. Whatever the answer, Sir Alfred remains a legend of the modern age, a man who, for nearly 2 decades, called an airport home and, in the end, found his final rest in the very place that had once imprisoned him.